This episode is brought to you by the weird, deathly silence that happens right before you fall asleep when you're taking a nap and you're not quite sure if someone's knocking on your door or if the feds are here again. It's a good feeling. Also, brought to you by Staplers. Staplers. They're how Gen Xers keep track of their shit. Staplers. And now, here's a song. This is the part where I'm supposed to have a song, but forgot to think of a song before we started the show. It's Smoke and Mirrors. And now here they are, your invenerable host, Carlos Kareem Wyndham. Hey, everybody. And that is how we know we are here. Welcome. It's Monday. We made it. We did 5 days last week instead of 4. Had to do it. Wanted to get that last interview in. We'll review the last week. I don't know. You might notice something different happening right now, but I'll explain it in a minute. Hey, we are in the second to last week of the Collective Evolution series. We hope you will be a part of it. This is going to continue through November 1st. I was a part of it. I did the inaugural session. There are more sessions coming. If you would like to find out about a session and be part of it, what I would like for you to do is to go over to subductionconsulting.com. That is subductionconsulting.com and be a part of that. Tomorrow, I am going to be here with the one and the only Tabloid. Tabloid is a comedian and, of course, a community activist. We found out more about that doing the researches, and we're going to get into some of that. She is doing some work in helping young folks avoid the treacheries of life in Las Vegas. And so we're going to get into some of that. And right now at the top of the epi, I want to invite you to go ahead and help us out here at Smoke and Mirrors. What we would like you to do is simply share it. Is this a thing, an event that means anything to you at all? Great. Share it on your page. Like on it. If you're on YouTube, hit a like, hit a subscribe, press a button, leave a comment. Whatever is foreplay in the appropriate form that you're in. Do that to the format. It's going to be great. We call that passing the J. It's absolutely free. It's a great way to share and support what we do here. If you wanted to throw 5 on it, which is a way to just feel like, hey, I got to pay my reparations. I got to pay for this wonderful, wonderful content. There's no better content to have. Well, shit, you could do that. You could put 5 on it at the Venmo at Carlos-Wyndham. You can do it at the Cash App, $CK Wyndham. You can do it at the PayPal /.CK Wyndham with an I, spelled like the jazz label, not the slave traders who made the hotels. Or you could become a patron, as have Ruthie, Erica, Amber, Aaron, Seth, Lisa, Kristen, Renisa, Michael, Natalie, Juliet, Tarika. Tarika, you've got to tell me how to say your name. I know I'm fucking it up. We don't do that here. Tracy, Venus, and Jen. Oh boy, you could be one of those. Right there, you see the one and the only Dom Jones, past guest and future guest, holding what? The very thing you receive if you become a patron. That would be your very own Carlos Wyndham trading card. Oh boy, man, imagine all the things you could trade for that, huh? That's just... It's got a joke on it in my face. You could, I don't know, maybe someone give you a gallon of gas or a reach around. I don't know. It's useless. Probably they'll not give you anything. Hey, so let's address the thing. That is, so new viewers, you don't know shit. You don't care. But if you've ever seen me face before, you may notice that one part of my face is a bit more covered than normal. And that's because it is International Talk Like a Pirate Day. And I figure if I wear an eye patch, no, that's not at all true. What it is, I'm going to be honest with you. What it is this. I have hovering above the earth right now a craft filled with aliens and shapeshifters. We're big green, and on November 4th, we are going to reveal ourselves, and the truth about the lizard people will be known. No. If you don't know me, I am greedy. So when I went to the Scleros store, I went ahead and picked up multiple. And so with my multiple sclerosis, on occasion, it means that my left eye, my brain, and my nerve endings decide that they're going to play a little bit of pinball, and they use my eye. So it is jittering around in my skull, and it's easier to just close the discussion than to entertain such gibberish. As with the hecklers who had wanted to interrupt the last interview we were doing, shout out one more time to my best fans ever, because what I know is that the people who would dare to find a way to come all the way over here to this community to try to say mean things to or about me, just love me. Just love me and want a hug. And they give me lots of free rent in their heads. And I got to say, it is roomy in there because it's not a lot else going on. So I appreciate it. Shout out to you. Don't interrupt my audience, though. Go fuck yourself. That's their time. You want to hassle with me? Hassle with me. It's fine. You could do that at smokeandmirrorsccb@gmail.com. I'll be there waiting. I love you. Today is a special day because I get to one more time make a public correction, and it's one that I am more than happy to make. If you were here with me, I think it's now 3 shows ago, I had misspoken and talked about and said my next guest's name in a way that, well, we'll talk about it when we're talking about it, but I'm not going to say it here, because what I learned is that what I was saying was some shit that white kids in high school used to say to this person to fuck with them. So I am the accidental asshole here. I played a white card when I didn't mean to. The guest today is a member of one half of Debajo del Agua. This is a group who is doing music. I will leave it at that because there is a variety of musical influence involved in what they do. It is brilliant. We're going to have a taste of it toward the end of the show, of course, as we do. They do have a new album coming out that, of course, I can't read my own handwriting, so I'm going to let our guest tell you about. Would you please welcome Dani Cornejo to the show? Here's the applause button. There's the welcome button. No, it's not. That's it. There he is. How you doing?
Peace, everybody.
How you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. That was a thorough introduction.
Thank you.
I was chuckling to myself, and laughter is the best medicine. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. I laugh at myself because it's easier than crying. It's a good thing.
Your
sometimes
lizard people reference was hilarious.
Oh,
I can tell you read David Icke or something back in the day. and now those lizard people references are going mainstream with QAnon and everything. So
isn't it?
That's it right there.
Isn't it? It's wild. It's wild. Hey, before we get too far, what is the name of the album you have coming out? I want to make sure we get that right.
Yeah, the name of the album is Mosiaco, dropping October 30th. We're going to drop a new video tomorrow. Part of our live quarantine sessions that that we were doing. This was an album created in quarantine as a creative release for me and my brother.
So you began this in quarantine. So how deep into quarantine, into the Tina, did you get before you two found a way to have a creative conversation? I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, we've been having a creative conversation for a while, just online, back and forth, email, sending
Hmm.
beats, things like that. But we had to take it to the next level. And so I would say about a month into it, we figured out how to send Logic files back and forth via Dropbox. And
Cool.
that way, he could lay guitar tracks, he could lay vocals, I could do mine, everything that I do, vocals, flutes, whatever,
Yeah.
and toss it back and forth and have that dialogue. But, before Dropbox, we couldn't do any of that. We had to get
Right.
on the same page with sequencers, and, we both had to get decent mics, and we both had to get, the necessary equipment. Once we were at that place, then the collaboration went fairly smoothly.
Yeah. I don't think that people understand what it's taken for artists to do the things that we do, right? Because you talked about getting decent mics. What I wonder about is for those artists who don't have those opportunities, right? Like you're talking about a lot of the folks who are part of the community under the philosophers tree here as sponsors, as patrons, what have you, certainly have contributed such that we're able to have decent mics, we're able to have good lighting, we're able to reach out to stellar guests such as yourself and be able to make things really happen. Uh, what? How, I mean, I can't even imagine for those folks who are in those more isolated settings. How before you actually figured out the Dropbox situation, what was going on for you in terms of the artistic, like just angst in terms of needing to get it out still?
Man, a lot, because you know um, I had a project that was bubbling pre quarantine. That it gained momentum. It was moving forward. It was a live set. It was recordings,
So
the
how
whole
long
nine.
how long had you been working on the project already before Tina showed up?
I would say a good 2 years. Good two
Damn.
years building.
Okay. See?
So we just had to reconfigure. Change the name up a little bit. Bring some more folk in.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a fairly smooth transition at the end of the day.
Good. Good. Ashe. Ashe. So I heard you. I know that you MC, right? And at a stellar level. I've listened to a number of the songs, including the one that we're going to present for the folks later today. I'm gonna ask you the same thing that I ask a lot of the other MCs who come here, and obviously, for anyone who thinks right. So for the one, this is the one area where there is still code switching for me, right? I can't talk about MCing without all of a sudden feeling my father's New York accent halfway in my mouth, and all the years that I spent doing it myself. How did you come to MCing? What was the first rhyme that you wrote? How old were you? Do you remember?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say I was probably in seventh grade or so,
Uh huh.
and I actually came to emceeing through punk rock. So
Okay.
me and my
Okay.
brother, we played instruments before that, and there was, I don't know if you recall, but there was an era of East Bay punk rock that was kind of on the borderline of rapping,
Hell
like
yes.
Operation Ivy, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the first rap I ever did was actually kind of an Op Ivy type song that ended, and it came out probably in seventh grade.
Nice.
Then I had an older cousin who was like, "Man, you're listening to some bullshit. Let me put you up on game." And he passes me a mixtape, and I I remember the mixtape distinctly. It was Far Side Running was the first track. KRS-One Rappers Are in Danger was the second track. De La Stakes is High.
Shit.
Um, Dinosaur Jr. was on there. Naughty by Nature.
Come on.
Um, and that was it. Like once I heard that, I was like, yeah, you're right. I was on some bullshit.
That's
Let
that
me
hip
go into
hop,
this.
hip hop.
Exactly. And then at that point, it coincided with this is like mid '90s or whatever. I went to live in Chile when I was in 1998.
Mm.
And that's when hip hop was really starting to pop off in South America. And I'm not talking about like dance hip hop. I'm talking about culture, four elements, graffiti,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole nine,
yeah.
sample based, all that, MCing. And I got down there and I was hearing people like Anatiju. I was hearing people like Tiro de Gracia who were spitting,
Right,
and they were
right.
spitting about, just maybe Generation Xers. I consider myself like an older millennial type, right? But they were spitting about stuff that I could relate to in a language that I could relate to. And
Mm.
so kind of having those two influences collide at the same time, I think was what really informed my style, informed the bilingual, trilingual, quadrilingual aspects of it, etc.
Dig. So
But what's
what
interesting,
did you go down to Chile for?
so my pops is from Chile.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so my pops was he was exiled in 1973.
Fuck out of
And for
here.
those that don't know the history, there was a U.S. backed coup d'état that hit Chile in 1973, and they removed the democratically elected socialist president Salvador Allende.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, it's a cycle that kind of closed today. But my pops was an organizer. He came from a low income poblacion is what they're called, and he rode with Allende. And so
Mm.
when the coup happened, they had people on a blacklist and they came after him. So uh, in my pops's case, they sent a death squad to his house, and they were going after him and his brother. And thankfully, just the circumstances were such that the security guard in their neighborhood didn't know where they lived and sent them to the wrong place. And my pop peeped that they were coming and was able to escape to our ancestral territory in a place called Colchagua, until it died down. Then, ironically enough, he ended up moving to the United States and marrying my mom. Thus, I'm here, born 1981. But I'm
So
a
wait,
product of
what year? What were you? Was your pop put out of Chile?
1973, or
Okay, so
I think
70.
he left 1974.
Right. So a year after the revolution, right then.
Mhm.
Okay, that is wild. That is wild.
Yeah,
That
and
is
that
wild.
that that political project just closed yesterday, where
How's that?
Chilean peoples um, went into the street to demonstrate for it's been about a year of just
Hmm.
ongoing protest to a right-wing government there, and they voted to change the constitution.
Come
And
on.
the constitution had been in place since the era of Pinochet, and it was a very kind of neoliberal uh, constitution that funneled money to the top 1% of the country, where the vast majority of people there, going hungry, living in poverty, etc. And so, it's a big day for us. That's why I'm rocking
Ache.
my Mapuche right here. For
Bring it.
those that don't know,
Let me
this
give you the big screen. Go ahead. One more time. One more time. Show it to him. Blow.
is called La Estrella de Arauco, a four direction star. For the Mapuche nations, representative
Yeah,
of
we got you on there. We got you.
beautiful. It's representative of the star Venus, the morning star, but also the Chilean flag, the contemporary one, did a version of this on. It's a blue star on the flag. A lot of people confuse the flag for the Texas flag, but don't get it twisted.
Please, at all. At all.
Mm-mm.
That is amazing. So all of you literary nerds, right? I hope you remember and you're piecing together, right? Like everything that Isabel Allende wrote, everything that she,
Mm-hmm.
right, as the
But she's
daughter.
from the Bay. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
she's not from the Bay. She moved here.
right. So I mean, now that she there, right? Any of you literary nerds from the '90s, blood, you better recognize. I mean, that's what's being talked about right now. This is living history. This is living history.
Yeah,
Damn.
and
So to the
we
U.S.
grew up in a community of exile as well, not just from Chile, but a community of exiles from places like Guatemala, El Salvador, economic exiles from Mexico and other places, right?
Right.
So there was always that consciousness that was a part of growing up in the community where we grew up.
So where is it that you did grow up? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Park Hill, Denver. It's northeastern Denver.
Get out of here.
It's
You
historic.
from Park Hill?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We initially grew up on like, I don't know, 26th and Ash, and later went to 23rd and Forest. But yeah, I mean, if you know anything about it historically, it's been an African American neighborhood. That's how it was when we were growing up, anyways.
Yup.
And that anymore.
No, not anymore. Now you could get donuts. You could go get your dog washed.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's
lot of
when we were
very wealthy.
And,
Rolling 30s was in that area when I was shoot, I want to say I was about 13, so that would have made about 85. And that would have been when the Rolling 30 Crips had come up from LA. And
exactly.
Yeah, and I know that they were there because in that same area, though, that you grew up, the kids who would have been a generation above you, Gen X, we still had those what are they called? Like the teen clubs or whatever it is, right? So we were able to go and hang out at these teen clubs that at the end of that. So did you ever even get to do that, or the rush and all that shit was dead by the time you came up?
When I was growing up, our neighborhood was mostly Piru at that point, and Piru blood, and the Crips.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, were mostly in the 5 Points area by that point.
Yep.
But a lot of that was concentrated kind of on the north side of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the clubs in that area, I mean, whatever, those clubs tended to be kind of neutral territory anyways, just in the way that people would operate and things.
Yeah, but people tended to be cool. I mean, it pop off once in a while, but it was never really, really hot at the clubs. It was pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, and my understanding is it was exportation of gang culture from LA. It was cats that had like hot situations in various neighborhoods in LA who came out to Denver and then basically established themselves in the mid 80s.
Absolutely.
And the era, war on drugs, crack epidemic, all that.
Okay, so you were coming up in that side right around that period then. Okay. And so how did you find yourself out in Oakland? Was that how long have you been out there now?
We've been out here since 2008 in Oakland. So came out here, I mean, man, I've been trying to come out to the Bay for much longer. I applied to Berkeley for undergrad, didn't get in, and eventually just the circumstances were such that my wife is from New Orleans, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So Denver, Colorado was not a comfortable place for her to be.
I would imagine that.
And so we needed to find kind of a neutral ground, and Oakland, California was that neutral ground for us. She applied to a school, got in. I applied to a school, got in, and here we are. We've been here ever since.
All right. And that I assume has been artistically productive. Is that where the group came together?
Nah, man, my group's been together since 2004.
Oh,
and
shit,
it's
break it down.
I mean, it's family. So if I were to really break it down, my pops came from Chile, and one of the things he brought with him was music, various styles, including La Nueva Canción Latinoamericana, but also Andean music. And he always had groups growing up with my uncles, and he'd take us with him. And some of the first songs I remember hearing were the traditional songs that he would sing. Excuse me. And so the dope thing about my pops is he always had instruments around, and he always let us play them, and he always let us just mess with them. He was never like, these are off limits to you. Yeah. And then as soon as we expressed any degree of interest, he was like, take this, learn this. And I remember I asked for an electric guitar, and he didn't hesitate to get me one. You know,
Mm.
at the time I was trying to learn Nirvana riffs or grunge music, right? Which
Right,
is
right, right.
actually a good way to learn how to play the guitar.
Hell yeah, it is.
Um, and yeah, so he always was kind of our first music teacher, and I didn't even really understand the science behind sampling. Like when I initially heard hip hop music, I thought it was people playing live. I thought, like, oh man, they got a horn section. I didn't understand because it was all mixtape,
Right.
and I didn't get sampling. And then so you know, I just thought that's how you did it. So even from the very first hip hop stuff that we created, it was always with live instrumentation.
Hell yeah.
Um, it was all, in fact, my brother and I trained ourselves to be able to spit while playing because that's how we thought it was done. You know, we just, so, um,
I
you
mean,
know,
that's it though. That's how you really learn, right? I heard Questlove one time was talking about that same shit. He was trying to play. What was he trying to do? He was trying to recreate Rod Temperton's drum pattern on Michael Jackson's, I think maybe like second or third song on side B of Off the Wall or something. And, it's like two layered drums. And
mhm,
so Amir taught himself to play the entire section, right? And then he
mhm,
saw learned how it was actually done and was like, oh, that's it? Got you.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Yes, that's
exactly.
wild. So you were doing that same thing. That mixtape you listened to, was that a pause mixtape or was that a mixtape?
That was a mixtape.
Okay, tight.
So yeah. Well, I mean, no, actually, I mean, it was a dubbed mixtape or whatever.
Okay, okay.
When you say Cosmic Tape, I think like A Tribe Called Quest, their first album,
Right,
and the
right.
production.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Nah, I mean, I'm talking like so one of the people who's gonna be coming on in a few weeks. I wish I could remember his fake name, and so I'm not gonna say any name. Anyway, he's gonna be coming up here in a few weeks, and one of the things that James Rotten put me onto was one of the sickest pause mixtapes I ever heard, which is basically just like let a song play, hit the pause button, put the next song on, rather
Yeah,
than
that's what.
DJing it. Yeah, okay, yeah. He did the same shit for
Yeah,
me. That's how I heard. Who was it? It was Black Sheep for the first time.
that's how I heard Black Sheep too. Got
See,
it on the mixtape. Who's a Black Sheep? What's a Black Sheep? Or
yup.
Fever for the Flavor. I love that first Black Sheep album.
Oh my god, that shit is ridiculous.
And I didn't. This is the thing about that era though. Like because I got everything in mixtape form,
Mm.
I never knew what these dudes looked like. So I
Right.
remember the first time I saw Black Sheep and they had like the Gumby or whatever, on that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, see, for some reason their voices didn't match with what I thought that they looked like. Same thing happened with Guru. When I saw Guru
Huh.
from Game Store, I thought he was like a bigger, heavier set dude because of his voice.
Yeah, he a
But
little
not,
dude. He was a little dude.
and it's like, so that was always interesting to because I never had the notes or anything like that. I just had their voices.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Back.
the other dope thing about that though is hip hop became an education for me,
Mm.
especially like East Coast, because I was able to. I remember when I went to New York for the first time. It's like I don't know, 17 or something. I actually knew how to get around solely based on hip hop lyrics.
What
I
train to
knew that
take?
for the Bronx, this rap shit probably wouldn't go on, so it's Uptown. So Uptown, Manhattan, down to Staten, right? I knew Queens Bridge. You got to cross a bridge to get to Queens, and actually looking at the metro map or whatever, and
Right.
then superimposing my hip hop knowledge onto that, I was like, oh, okay. I knew how to get around.
That is wild. The first time I had to get around New York, I was 15 years old, and my uncle Daniel. And again, this is in the 80s. So this was a hectic New York, man. My uncle
Yeah.
Daniel gave me a fistful of coins because that's still what it was to get on the train. and was like, all right, you got your subway tokens. I'm going to work and pick me up for lunch. See ya. And just bounced. And was like, here's a map, here's some coins, figure it out. Same kind of situation, right? Except that I had to go from the map because at this time, daylight had just dropped. Very few cats were really talking about the actual map of, where is what in New York in relation to what outside of the KRS Queensbridge beef. Like that was kind of like, okay, I don't go to Queens. That's what I know. I don't know. So yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
Yeah, that's an interesting story you tell because I have an uncle who was exiled to Venezuela, and I visited him, and it's the same story. He just handed me the coins, and he was like, "Yeah, take the subway, go learn, go learn the city." And this was Venezuela right after Hugo Chavez took charge.
Jesus.
And so I was going around talking to folk about the political situation and getting, schooled up in that way. Learned actually, Venezuela's got a dope hip hop scene, and I learned that just by kind of riding the subway around, buying those bootleg CDs, and listening.
Yeah, South America got it going on. If you're paying attention, South America really has it going on in terms of like you really want to hear lyrics, you really want to hear the politic of it. It's popping. It's popping. So when were you in Venezuela?
And Emcees too.
Yeah,
in South America.
Yeah. When were you in Venezuela?
2004.
2004?
2004, yeah.
Okay. And what was the I'm sorry, I missed it. What was the origin of the travel there? You said it was more relations?
Oh yeah. I mean, that whole trip was a fairly transformational experience for me. I had graduated college and I was working at a job that I didn't like. It wasn't the right job for me. It was a cubicle job. It wasn't the right job. And my brother was living in Salvador de Bahia at the time. He was doing like a study abroad.
Okay.
And so I went to visit him, and and for those that don't know, Salvador de Bahia is the Afro-Brazilian capital. It's it's one of these places like New Orleans or Havana, Cuba, that's just emanating vibration and culture, and it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I went to visit him there, and I had actually just gotten an MPC beforehand and kind of created my first beats using my father's cumbia records, and I brought that CD with me. We actually created our first Debajo del Agua song in Salvador de Bahia, listening to those beats. It's a song called Saca la Máscara, Take Off the Mask. We have a video for it somewhere. And I was going to stay there for like a month. And I got there, and within a week, I'm like, I'm not going home. I'm not going home. I'm just going to stay here.
So how long were you out there?
Man, 9 months.
Yeah.
I traveled up the coast, and I stayed with different people, did an Amazon trip.
Right.
They had pink dolphins in the Amazon at that time.
Huh.
And my whole goal of that trip was to blend in. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to. I was peeping how tourists from different places were perceived by Brazilians, and I was like, man, I don't want to be perceived that way. So, I learned Portuguese pretty well to get by. I was able to pass for South American pretty easy, as opposed to North American.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through the Amazon and up into Venezuela and stayed with my uncle. And yeah, it was a transformative trip for me. You know how it is, man. It's like sometimes I was at a point in my life where I was actually starting to like move away from some of the addictions that I had in my adolescence. I started drinking real early, started reefer real early.
Okay.
And I got nothing against reefer, don't get me wrong, but the way that I was using it at the time, it was more of a crutch than a medicine. You know what I'm saying?
No, and it's not for everybody, right? Like any medicine, if you abuse it, if it's taken too young, if it's taken too much, and any medicine can become a crutch very easily. So no, absolutely. Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
But, I needed to separate myself from that community of use, right?
Mm.
And going to Brazil for that 9 months was just what I needed to kind of redefine myself outside of my addictions,
Okay.
and be able to come back and reintroduce myself in a different way to folk. And when I came back from that trip, that's when this group was formed. And so in that way, this group was hella healing for me because it allowed me to continue to be social, allowed me
Hmm.
to continue to connect with, but not around substance,
Yeah.
right? Not drinking. Instead, we were cultivating, a culture for folk to come and enjoy and partake. So, it was a necessary trip in that sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very, very, very glad that happened for you. I mean, addiction is a thing that lives deep in my family, right?
Mm,
As I think it does in the families of most folks who are indigenous, most folks who are black, most folks who have suffered under this white supremacist capitalist patriarchy,
yeah.
and have not been the beneficiaries of white affirmative action, right? Find
Yep.
ourselves, when we are unable to heal, holding on to the crutches that have been provided, most certainly by them, right? And most particularly in the case of alcohol, of liquor. It is a thing that, I mean, it can get us. It can get us. How old were you when that happened? I
I
know you said the
was
year, but what,
20,
you in your
I was
early
maybe
20s?
like 22, 23 or
Wow.
so.
Okay,
And by
congratulations.
the time yeah, by the time I came back, it was, I was like, okay, I'm gonna become an educator. And I stepped into the realm. I kind of like dove
Yeah.
both feet into education, and was able to get a house at that time, um and also, started walking on the red road around that time. So,
Mm.
was able to find mentors that were like, there's a different way to walk in this world, and so, that was very important because I think without those guides, without the mentors showing me a different path, I think it would have been very easy to relapse,
Mm.
into alcohol usage.
Yeah. Yeah. So as that transformation happened for you, what was the biggest thing, or what were some of the biggest things, right? What was the biggest thing? What the fuck is that? What were some of the biggest things that you learned about yourself, right? When you were reintroduced to yourself. And I'm not going to act like I didn't just smack my own glasses, because I did, and I know you saw it, and so did everybody else. So, but what was some of what you got to learn as you were reintroduced to yourself?
Well, that term, reintroducing yourself, I borrowed from Lauren Hill. If you listen to her Unplugged, she talks about the need to be able to reintroduce yourself to
Mm.
people. People tend to, especially people from your past, know you as some kind of way, right? As you
Right.
were as a teenager or a kid. And so it's important to be able to reintroduce yourself as you grow, as you evolve. And so even just that, even just having the courage to be able to stand in my sobriety and be like, this is where I am right now.
Mm.
Um, that was huge for me. But then beyond that, I think there was a certain self love that I was just comfortable in my own skin at that point, And I think another piece of that, while I was in Brazil, I started training capoeira very regularly. So there was
Mm.
a physical and body knowledge aspect of that transformation that allowed me to just feel more comfortable inside of my body. And I often tell my wife this: I'm glad that we met at the time that we met, because we met after that trip. And if she had met me like a year or two before that, we wouldn't be together right now, because I was a different human being at that
Mm.
point. The transformation was that stark, in that 9 month period. And so, uh, yeah, I was comfortable enough with myself and you hold a certain confidence when you're comfortable in your own
Yeah.
skin, and people are attracted to that.
Yeah. So what was it, if you're comfortable talking about it, right? Like what was some of the discomfort that you were holding prior to that? I mean, there's a range of identities that you talked about holding. I also grew up in Colorado. I know what that place like.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I didn't know anybody as a teenager who was in Colorado, whether they were from Colorado or not, who was a black or brown person who would claim to be from there, right? Like everybody was like, ugh, eh. And to be growing up there, as not only as an immigrant, but as an immigrant from Salvador, right? During the time that you were, what, how, what was the itch? What was going on in terms of the discomfort for you, if you can describe it,
Oh
that
man.
you had to reunite with yourself?
So I mean, I claim Colorado proudly.
Oh yeah, now
I
I'm not. That's my place. That's my place. It does put
yeah.
you through a thing.
This is the thing that I think folk on the coasts don't really understand. It's to live on the coast is to live in a progressive bubble, whether it's East Coast or West Coast. And a lot of folk that grow up here, they don't understand that bubble does not exist in other parts of the country.
Mm.
So certain things that you take for granted here, you can't take for granted in places like Colorado, right? You have to battle with a whole other series of issues. For instance, I recall very distinctly in second grade, there was a Martin Luther King march, and there was Klan in hoods that were there at the Capitol.
Dog, I was in that march. I was in that march. Keep telling them. Keep telling them. Keep telling them what we did.
Okay. And as soon as the MLK march comes up and sees these fools, it had snowed, and so people are just picking up snowballs, and they're just getting bombed with snowballs, right? To the point where they have to evacuate them out from like under an underground place because they were gonna hear it, they were gonna get it, right?
They were gonna get that smoke. It was on. It was real.
Exactly.
It was real.
Exactly.
But you don't understand when we tell you to be from there and be able to claim your identity, how strongly a black person, a brown person from Colorado claims that identity. You don't know what it is to be going to school with the Klan. You don't know what it is to be going to school with skinheads. You don't know what it is for there to be a Klan march protected by the police on MLK Day through the Capitol, dog. The Capitol.
Yeah, straight up. I'll tell you another anecdote, right, to contextualize. I remember in second grade, I was blessed to actually have 3 black teachers in my first 5 years going to school there.
Okay, wait.
But in second grade,
back up again. Back up. You had 3 black teachers?
3 black teachers, and I've only now come to realize how rare that is.
Bro, I didn't have a black teacher until I was at the university. Wait. Nope, not one. My sister had one, but she was an evil human being. I didn't have one black teacher. 3, that's wow. Amazing. All right, keep talking.
Yeah, so first and second grade, but I recall, so I was in second grade, mid 80s or whatever, 86, 87, around there. And my black teacher was as I'm going to put you in my second grade mind, right? He acted effeminate, right? Mm. I later found out that he was gay, right? I didn't know what gay was at the time, but incredible teacher, very kind and generous to us. They made this dude teach second graders about HIV and AIDS, because at that time in the 80s, HIV and AIDS was believed to be a quote unquote gay disease. And they made this dude teach us. Mind you, we didn't know what the fuck sex was, right? Let alone a sexually transmitted disease. So what I recall is, I'm not going to put his name on blast, but my teacher very uncomfortably attempting to talk about HIV and AIDS, talking about like don't play blood brothers. If you're bleeding, don't go into a swimming pool or what have you. But I mean, just the violence that they inflicted on this man, right? Um, what even as a second grader, I could see it,
Yeah.
and I think that same year I got low on a standardized test, and they put me in ESOL, right? I speak fluent English, right, the whole nine. But it's just stuff like that
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 place
was
is
fairly
crazy.
normalized.
Once I got into public school, all of a sudden I was in remedial classes. Before that, I was dissecting a cow's eye. I was writing in cursive. I knew calligraphy. I could type. I was a third grader. How I'm remedial? How I'm listening to these white kids try to read out loud, talking about and the thing on the. I'm reading novels. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm remedial?
exactly. And this is the interesting thing about that, because my pops moved us back to Chile in 1989,
Mm,
because there was a vote that happened to get rid of Augusto Pinochet and
right.
bring in democracy. So we moved back to do that, and his class status had shifted from the time he left to the time, because he had gotten a master's degree in the States.
Right.
He went
right.
back to his country with a master's degree in engineering, and so our class status had shifted, right? And so I was able to go to the American school there. It was all English, and it was a trippy experience, because I'm sitting in there with the children of the people who had supported the dictator,
Wow.
right? And
Coming from that
I
experience
had
in
a very
Colorado,
clear
coming from
political
that
identity
experience in
even at that
Colorado
time.
to get there, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I
it was
can't. I mean,
bugged
my
out.
mind
It
is
was bugged.
blown. All right, so you're there
And
with you're there with these people, and then what's popping there?
I mean, the affluence. First of all, I hadn't seen that degree of affluence anywhere.
Mm,
People with swimming pools and mansions or whatever. Um, and I remember, they kind of took me under their wing initially, because I was from the States. But as soon as they realized that we didn't have money like them, they quickly kind of kicked me to the side, right? And I remember this happened. My mom, we had this Russian car. It's called a Lada. None of y'all know about that. It's a Russian car, hella bootsy, right? And my mom drove up in that, and they saw that we were driving that car, and they kind of automatically knew. And so I ended up, it ended up being cool. I ended up befriending like the children of the teachers and the people that worked there, and that was kind of my crew, so it was good. But the point is, it was a high quality education. When I
yeah.
came back to the States after that, I was in like challenge and gifted and highly gifted and all that, right? And it was like a matter of 2 years, right? So for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. They don't know. They don't know. You ain't paying no attention. You know what I'm saying? They ain't paying no attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this idea that somehow the victims of the atrocity, the global atrocities, right, from the genocides of North and South America, the entirety of it, and I'm looking at you, Canada, motherfuckers. You ain't sweet, right? To what's going on throughout South America, through all the dictatorships, the banana republics, the way that we destroyed Cambodia, the way that we destroyed Vietnam, the way the actual whole ass people who were refugees were being referred to as boat people, which again, growing up in Colorado, I know what you know. I know you know these people. I know you know these people. I know these people. You know what I'm saying? You don't grow up where we grow up. And you don't. My mother was an activist with refugees as well. So, right, I'm growing up knowing kids from Vietnam, from Moscow, from any place the United States destroyed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those were my people growing up, right? And all through college. And knowing that connectivity, if we really understand, right, it's as you were talking about, it's that neoliberal love of power and of money that the United States has been able to export globally. and exploit. Damn.
Yeah, and it's an inability to see outside of the paradigms of extractive colonialism,
Mm.
right? This belief that you can just develop your way out of these social problems, right? It's a
Say
capitalistic
that again.
mentality.
Say it again. Say it again.
Well, it's the capitalistic mentality. We tend to like have blinders on when it comes to capitalism, right? And um, it's difficult to understand how to. We can't even visualize how to solve problems outside of those capitalistic blinders. Any solutions that we come up with tend to be, well, how do we extract more to get more money? Or how do we develop our way out of this? Or what kind of technology can we invent to, make this problem obsolete? And ultimately, those things end up creating more problems, which is why, I tend to emphasize more going back to original instructions and traditional ecological knowledge and the paradigms that people survived with for thousands of years since time immemorial on this continent.
I say when it shows up, right? It shows up in the work that you're doing individually, right? We were talking before about creating your own ecology at home. Can you tell us a little bit more about that before we get into some of this music?
Yeah, definitely. You know, since we moved to the Fruitvale and had a little bit more space in our yard, it was very important for my wife and I to really practice the principles of indigenous permaculture. So, we got some chickens. You use the poop of the chickens to fertilize various plants. You plant things based on angles of the sun and where things thrive. Right now, we have bees in our home. We have probably like 14 different fruit trees. We have a greenhouse, things of that nature. And it's just been piece by piece over time. But, as soon as this pandemic hit, it was such a blessing to have these things in place because, we didn't have to go to the store for eggs. We didn't have to go to the store to get the fresh fruit. We didn't have to, we had to go to the store for certain things. But, if it really came down to it, we felt like, we could hunker down for a cool minute and be all right. So,
Yeah,
those types of knowledges are incredibly important.
absolutely. I mean, and even with that, like thinking about like the local ecology of what you're doing for the survival of the land itself, the survival of the chickens, how much it minimizes
Mhm.
the carbon emissions of having to go anywhere to get anything, the amount of travel and how many times anything in a store has been stepped on already. Yeah, it's just a lot closer to the earth.
And
Uh,
on top of that, your children have access to it, and they get to learn the medicinal properties of plants, and they get to learn, how often you have to water things, and you
right.
know how much sun particular plants need, and you start to develop a relationship with a landscape
Mm.
that goes beyond an extractive relationship. That goes beyond a commodified relationship.
Yeah, that phrase. That's the phrase that hit me before, right? Looking to be beyond extractive, beyond extractive.
Hmm.
I really really dig that. So speaking of that, the sound uh, that you have created, I do want to talk about it for a quick second
Yeah,
before
yeah.
we give it to these people because it knowing now the history of how you got there and how much of it was developed from an instrumental perspective and the abilities to do the business live, right? I know as recording artists, the recording that live are two very, very different beasts. But
Yep.
what you're presenting is that authenticity and that expression of what you do. How many instruments are involved in the tracking of, for instance, a piece like what we're going to look at, like Mariposa?
Okay. So Mariposa, I did the drums on an MPC. Um, My homie Maria Lorenzi played the bass on a guitar. I played the guitar for it. I had to learn trumpet to play trumpet on that track. So
Huh.
I picked up the trumpet over the past, I don't know, 3 years or so. It's a dope, beautiful instrument. It's nice to pick up an instrument later on in life. And then, it was my brother Pablo, a co-conspirator, who was like, "Yo, what if we could flip a banda track into a trap track? What if we could do that?" Because it was just playing with tempo, going from double time to single time.
Pablo who?
Um, Pablo Cornejo,
Okay, okay,
um,
okay, okay.
my co-conspirator in Debajo del Agua.
Eso.
Um, yeah, and so it took me a while to figure out, but we were able to go from like a double time tempo banda track to a down tempo trap without changing the tempo of the track.
Mm.
And that was fun in and of itself. It was a style we had never done, like a banda track before, so it was fun to sing that style. And then we had never really messed with trap delivery before, which in and of itself is fun. The triplet, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. That whole thing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is a blast. So just from a creative nerd out standpoint, that track was a blast to do.
That's dope. That's dope. Pablo is in the chat saying me. I see you, Pablo. I see you. Also, did see and put on the page. Forgot to mention to you earlier, Abuelita is watching.
Yes.
So yeah, shout out to you, Abuelita.
Abuelita, she only speaks Spanish, but she understands everything in English. So it's like she'll pretend like she doesn't understand,
Yeah.
but she obviously through the whole podcast listening to the whole thing because she understands. So you got to watch what you say.
Yeah, yeah. I wish Pablo would have hit me to that before we were
It's all
25
good.
minutes in. Oh, well, it is what it is. I did that to my own poor mother. Bless her heart. She learned who I was, not the hard way. She just learned who I was. It's
Exactly.
that way. Hey, ain't nothing we could do that they don't know. Ain't nothing we could do they don't know. You can't fool them.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. How many languages are on this record?
Um,
On the
English,
LP.
Spanish. I'm sorry.
On the
On
full
the LP,
LP.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spanish, Portuguese, Quechua, Nahuatl. 5 languages.
Damn. Come on now. I mean, that's a full diaspora. And so that and clearly recognizing the travels you've taken. Is there anybody else that you were carrying with you in bringing those languages forward? What was the driving factor in deciding to bring such a multiplicity of identities forward all at once?
Yeah, well, I think especially for the Nahuatl language, I've been a practitioner of the Mexicayo tradition since 2004. And, I've been learning songs in Nahuatl for quite a long time. And me and a colleague of mine were facilitating a Nahuatl study group for many years up at UC Davis. And so I finally felt comfortable enough to, try to do like 4 bars. So it took a while to build up to that, though.
Yeah.
And then just in terms of the Quechua, I read this amazing book called Red Pedagogy by Sandy Grande, who's a Quechua scholar. It's an educational book. And she has this quote in there that says, Wanyumi aswana yin konkorchaki kausaitaka yaktaku nakati painiwan tekrimuyuta kuyunchisunchis, which is the translation of Emiliano Zapata's famous quote, "I'd rather die standing than to live on my knees." And then she adds, "When the villages unite, we are stronger." So I thought it was a beautiful message. I thought it was beautiful to hear Emiliano Zapata, who is a Nahuatl person, translated into Quechua, which is another major indigenous language of the Americas. And so I sat and I prayed with it. I prayed with the words. And, oftentimes when it comes to indigenous languages, I'll sit and I'll pray with it. And, I'll ask for that melody to come. And that's what happened. Melody came. And that's the song we're going to drop tomorrow, is the Quechua song.
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, and ultimately it's a mosaic, right? That the reason we bring all of these pieces together, the reason we call the album Mosiaco, is because it precisely brings in all of these aspects of who we are, And a big homie of mine once told me, we were doing ceremony in the Four Corners region, Hopi territory, danced for 3 days. And after the dance, we were reflecting upon the insights that we had received through that process. And, he says to me, prior to colonization, indigenous traditions were full, whole, and complete. We had philosophy, we had math, we had agriculture, we had art, we had martial arts, and anything else you could imagine. And the process of colonization took, and if you think of this knowledge as a complete and whole clay pot, it's holistic knowledge. And the process of colonization took the clay pot, shattered it into 1,000 pieces. And so our project now is, how do we collect as many pieces as possible? It might be a dish here, it might be a word here, it might be a song here, it might be a story there. Sometimes the shards will cut us because they're hard to hold, and they take some responsibility to be able to hold well. But ultimately, the point is not to rebuild the clay pot, because that's impossible. The point is, how do we repurpose these shards into a mosaic that we can use in the present? And so that's really the backbone of this project.
Oh shit! I think that's it, and we ain't gonna get no better than that. Yeah, absolutely, y'all. Please, give it up for my guest, Dani Cornejo. Let's go ahead and hit that applause. Thank you so much for being here. This has really been an honor and a privilege. Thank you for sharing the wisdom. Any shout outs you want to give before we do the outro credits and get to the music?
Oh man, shout outs. I'll be here for 10 minutes. Shout out to
we got it. Go
Pablo
ahead.
Shout out to Abuelita Raquel. Shout out to Pepe Cornejo and Marcia Cornejo. My family in Chile, if you tuned in, shout outs to you. Shout out to East Oakland, California. Shout out to Park Hill, Denver. I'll just leave it at that. We'll keep it nice and clean. Shout out to Sonora, Mexico, and anyone in the Opataria. Love y'all.
Hey, there it is. That has been Dani. You know who I am. Let's do these little outros and get to this music. You heard enough of me. We put the record cover up there a couple times. You know what it is, so please do check that out. This has been another episode of Smoke and Mirrors. If you are interested in doing such nonsense, you are more than welcome to go and look at my lovely face with 2 eyes at the Instagram at Smoke and Mirrors CCB. That is for comedy, culture, and bullshit. Lo siento, abuelita. You can also check out the words that are right at the Twitter at Caballo Negrito. And if, again, you want to engage, you are more than welcome, Carlito, mijo. I see you out there. Smoke and Mirrors, CCB at Gmail. And one more time before we do get into this music, I want to give an extra special shout out to all of the Carloses of the world for letting me know that you are actually the Calebs of the Latin American and Latino community, and letting me know that my name is Dudu. Why are you like that? Just stop it. Stop. Just because we're born in the 70s doesn't mean you got to act like that. I love you, though. I love you. Hey, listen, wash your hands. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Do not go outside. If you're going to go outside, for the love of God, wear a mask. Why? Because we love you. Also, I'm going to say this. I haven't been saying it for a couple days. Vote. Fucking vote. 8 days, my friends. 8 days, and then I will reveal the lizard people. And now, here we go. We're going to get into some of that music. I hope. Is this the right button? It isn't, but this one is. Bang.
Say, oh me, yay, now we.
En la frontera entre el invierno y la primavera, entre el hip hop y la canción nueva, ¿cómo será? Nos criamos en la frontera entre las rocosas y la cordillera, entre la tradición y la nueva era, ¿cómo será?
Rompiendo fronteras, mi pana, fronteras que están fabricadas, las líneas escritas en mapas por blancos malvados con poder y lana. The common denominator is the hatred they spraying on all of my partners. They locking us, tracking us, blocking us, blasting us, hazardous actions to activate conquest. Almaty y Isco y Ikpak, Ayak Shukli Intlaltikpa, Patli Chipitica, Químico, Yoma Ika, Nikita que se quita. Buena coyote, I'll see it. The trickster tratándose libre. Impapa no quembo, the butterfly rising, mariposa flying, just be it.
Mariposa que vuela, no reconoce fronteras, inmigración es natural, como vivir en la tierra. Mariposa que vuela, no reconoce fronteras, inmigración es natural, como vivir en la tierra.
Through the pain, who's to say who could stay? Native to the land, truth is a few can claim. Every day, all day, stay true to change. They threw us out, we came back. Boomerang. Señores, señora, perdóname, órale, señor. Trumpito, ve dólares, dólares. Bórrale, bórrale, bordes de nogales. Zona de papalo, volaré. Through the rain, through the vein, through the pain. Round them up like they about to get the fumigation. Imagine your kids in cages, you enslaved. Traumatized brown child, black and blue the nation. Tudo bem, ninguém tá tudo bem. As chotas, a migra, explotação. Todos estão mal, poucos muito bem. Mas o mundo mantém nesse rotação.
Mariposa